got a small lead in Nevada. They've got, McCaskill's doing okay in Missouri. You've got Heitkamp doing okay in North Dakota. And we've got Joe Donnelly in Indiana. We don't have an average for him yet. We don't have a lot of polling data, but we will soon. And I think that if Joe Donnelly is doing well in Indiana, you're looking at a situation where Democrats could be, gaining a seat or two in the Senate, and potentially, it's going to be creeping closer to a point where they might be able to take the Senate as well. And that's a huge story that currently, really hasn't been covered. The one bright spot for Republicans right now is in your home state, where Rick Scott is leading Bill Nelson. Now, it's hard to see if Democrats are going to do as well as they seem to be doing in some of these other states, that Rick Scott's going to pull one out in Florida. But that's right now what Republicans are sort of hanging their hat on.
Boy, Tom, isn't Florida a remarkable state? It's a state that most thought Hillary Clinton would be winning because it was diverse, getting more diverse by the day. And yet it's actually a state that's sort of become a little, from a totally purple swing state. Tim Rutzer saying back in 2000, Florida, to a state that's moved from red to purple back to red.
I was with a Democratic strategist on election night, Joe, and it went from, looking at early precinct returns, we got this is a lock, this is, it's a no-brainer, it's done, to, wait a minute, hold on a second, let me see what's going on, to, oh my God, what just happened? It was a state that Democrats thought they had in the bag, and it is surprising, and you've got this influx of folks from Puerto Rico that Democrats are trying to register in the Orlando I-4 corridor area. How's that going to play in the Senate race? It's a fascinating place to watch, and I think that race is going to be close, and it's going to be expensive, it's going to be high profile, and it's going to be part of the mix, certainly, in terms of whether Democrats are able to take control of the Senate or not in November.
All right, Tom Bevan, thank you very much. And still ahead on Morning Joe, we'll speak live with one of those two Ohio candidates we've been talking about. Democrat Danny O'Connor joins us in just a few minutes. But first, Paul Manafort is staring down a potential prison sentence if convicted on a litany of charges. The government's star witness, Rick Gates, returned to the stand as Manafort's legal team tries to go after his credibility. We'll go live to the courthouse straight ahead. You're watching Morning Joe. We'll be right back.
At Ally, we're doing digital financial services right. But if that's not enough, we have more than 8,000 allies looking out for one thing: you.
Call in the next 10 minutes.
And if that's not enough, we'll look after your every dollar.
Put down the phone.
And if that's not enough, we'll look after your every cent.
Grab your wallet.
Access denied.
And if that's still not enough to help you save,
New one.
we'll bring out the dogs.
The old one's just fine.
We'll do anything, seriously, anything to help our customers.
Thanks.
Ally, do it right.
Shoes off. Belts off.
That's why I wear Skechers slip-on shoes. They're comfortable, and they come in a variety of styles. Slip on and off easily as well.
You're Tony Romo.
Yeah.
You still gotta lose the belt. Come on.
Slipping in comfort with Skechers slip-ons.
This is not a bed. It's a high-tech revolution in sleep. The new Sleep Number 360 smart bed. It intelligently senses your movement and automatically adjusts on each side to keep you both comfortable. And snoring? How smart is that? Smarter sleep to help you lose your dad bod. Train for that marathon. And wake up with the patience of a saint. The new Sleep Number 360 smart bed from $9.99. Smarter sleep will change your life.
We knew Angie's List had reviews of home pros.
But so do lots of websites.
I didn't want to pay.
Then I found out it's free. Wait, it's free?
Free to check ratings, read reviews.
And they'll even match your project with a few qualified pros for the job. Go to angieslist.com today. In an era of online retail where everything is just a few clicks away, buying a car should be no different. That's why at Carvana, you can buy a car 100% online. We made it easy to browse, view, and buy from over 10,000 cars. You can even trade in your old car, all while binge watching your favorite TV show. Afterwards, we'll deliver your car to you. Or you can pick it up from one of our car vending machines. Either way, your car comes with a 7-day return policy. So grab a seat, relax in your comfy pants, and enjoy the new way to buy a car at Carvana.
Booking a flight at the last minute doesn't have to be expensive. Just go to Priceline. It's the best place to book a flight a few days before my trip and still save up to 40%. Just tap and go. For the best savings on flights, go to Priceline.
This is not a video game.
This is not a screensaver. This is the destruction of a cancer cell by the body's own immune system, thanks to medicine that didn't exist until now. And today can save your life.
Everybody's got a smartphone, but the challenge is they don't have access to broadband at home. Spectrum is right on point with investing in communities to increase digital access and to help to bridge that divide. The Spectrum Digital Education Fund has made a huge difference for us. We focus on digital literacy.
I want to get a new job. I'm ready to switch careers.
I want to use these skills so I can give back to the community. We really appreciate the investment that Spectrum has made in our community. Giving people access to technology truly makes a difference in their ability to navigate their lives. Spectrum is investing in the community, both locally and nationally, and that's very important to us.
This morning marks day 7 of the trial of former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort. Evidence and testimony from Rick Gates yesterday appears to confirm exclusive reporting from NBC News earlier this year that the special counsel's team was investigating whether Manafort promised the CEOs of Federal Savings Bank, Stephen Koch, a job in the White House in return for $16 million in home loans. Yesterday, the jury was shown emails Manafort sent Gates asking for a series of favors, including requesting Koch be considered for Secretary of the Army. Koch did not get a job in the administration. However, Manafort did manage to launch Koch into Trump's orbit as a financial advisor on the campaign, what prosecutors say was part of a quid pro quo agreement for those loans. When Manafort's attorney questioned Gates about whether any other members of the special counsel's team had asked about his time on the Trump campaign, prosecutors objected. Lawyers were called to the bench. The court then went into recess, and the topic never came up again. Gates also testified that he had embezzled from Manafort as part of an extramarital affair nearly 10 years ago, kept an apartment in London, flew first class, and stayed in luxury hotels. Joining us now, former U.S. Attorney and an MSNBC contributor, Barbara McQuade, who's been in the courtroom during Paul Manafort's trial. Barbara, good morning. Good to see you. What was your headline walking out of the courtroom yesterday?
I think my headline was that Gates got beat up a little bit on cross-examination, and he may have been damaged, but I don't think so much so that it's going to lose the case for the prosecution.
And what about this relationship with Koch? Who exactly is he, and how does he figure into this big picture for Paul Manafort?
Yeah, he's an interesting name. He is this person who is a lender from a Chicago bank, lent Paul Manafort during a time when he had lost his job, lost his money, and was really broke, lent him something like $16 million. And his name then shows up on the Council of Economic Advisors for President Trump. Paul Manafort, as you said, wants him to be considered for Secretary of the Army. He shows up at the inauguration, and so he's an interesting figure. We have not heard a lot of evidence about this particular loan yet. I imagine that Gates was put into the middle of the trial by prosecutors so that if he were to stumble, they started strong, they'll finish strong with a lot of evidence on paper that is much harder to cross-examine.
So obviously this, as we've said many times, this trial is not about Paul Manafort's role as President Trump's campaign chairman during the campaign, but it is obviously why so many people are interested in it, to see if there is any crossover in there. What did you make of the judge yesterday sort of snapping on and calling the attorneys to the bench and shutting down conversation about that part of Paul Manafort's career?
Well, I thought it was interesting because the prosecution did raise for the first time yesterday the name Trump was uttered out loud in court. You know, it's sort of been like Voldemort, never to be spoken aloud. But yesterday it did come up, and I think it was in a very narrow context of this particular bank fraud, and that was all we heard about it. On cross-examination, the defense really wanted to delve deeply into this. I think they asked a very open-ended question about, did there come a time when you met with the special prosecutor's office and were asked questions about President Trump? And so that was when the prosecution jumped up and said, objection, lengthy sidebar, and then we never heard more about it. They moved on to another topic. And I think that's because there is a whole world there that the prosecution does not want exposed to the world, including an ongoing investigation about what's going on with connections. To the detriment, though, of the prosecution, I think the jury is left with a misleading impression because they now know that Rick Gates has been promised a lot of things, you know, leniency, including the possibility that his lawyer can ask for a sentence of probation and the government will not oppose that. Now, that doesn't mean he'll get probation. The judge gets to decide. But it sounds like a real sweetheart deal when you think about all of the many years in prison he was looking at. My guess is the reason he got so much benefit is not just for his testimony in this case, which is really a tiny sliver of his cooperation, but for all of the other cooperation he has given about all the other things, about what he learned on the campaign in exchange for Trump. This jury will never know about that, and so I worry that it looks like he's getting a real sweetheart deal when Manafort is exposed to, you know, likely many years in prison.
Barbara, Steve Rattner, just to broaden out the question about the judge a bit, because I think back in the spring during some pretrial stuff, he said some things that the Trump administration liked. It seems like since this trial began, there have been a number of occasions where he's snapped at the prosecutors, told them not to talk about things, cut them off, whatever. What should we make of that, if anything, about the judge's attitude toward this trial and this case, and B, will it matter when it ultimately goes to the jury?
Well, I am told that this is kind of the way this judge operates. He is very much a part of the trial. He's not like you hear a good umpire is the one who's never noticed. He is very noticed. He injects himself into the case very much. I am told that is the way he rolls in many cases. But I do worry about the impact he could have. He has been very hard on the prosecution in the interest of trying to move things along. He's constantly after them to stop asking questions. With a witness like Gates, it's really important that they get an opportunity to corroborate his testimony by showing documents that confirm what he is saying. He's allowed a little leeway there. But to me, the most damaging thing he did was yesterday when Gates was testifying that Manafort was very involved in knowing all of the financial matters. The judge said, well, obviously he wasn't watching that closely because you were able to steal from him. A gratuitous comment, and this is a person who the jury sees as the authority figure, an independent judge, and an expert on the law. To say that has to have some influence on them, so I'm really worried about that statement.
Yeah, Barbara, Noah Rothman from Commentary. So briefly on that point, I think it was yesterday that we learned that Konstantin Klimnik, who is a Ukrainian-Russian businessman who is alleged by the Mueller probe to have active ties to Russian intelligence up to and including in 2016, that Gates testified that Manafort directed him to report overseas income as loans in order to lower taxable income, and some of that income came from Mr. Klimnik. What do we make of that, and do you have any idea whether that registered with the judge or the jury?
I don't think it is registered within the judge and jury that that's a connection to Russia or Russian intelligence. I think that they've been focused very much on the significance of padding the income or lowering the income, as the case may be here, to try to reduce Paul Manafort's tax bill. But in the bigger picture, as observers of this, there are some bigger themes coming out. I mean, keep in mind, that is money coming from Russian intelligence. What was the purpose of that? Other themes, these are some incredibly reckless fraudsters in Paul Manafort and Rick Gates, and yet Donald Trump put these people on his campaign in very high-level positions. Did he know about their backgrounds, or did he not? Did he know and not care, or did he never bother to vet them at all?
Everybody else knew it would be a surprise if Donald Trump didn't. Barbara McQuaid, the former U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan, translating what she sees in the courtroom for us. Thanks so much, Barbara. Good to talk to you.
Great. Thanks, Willie.
Still ahead, the results for Ohio's special election are razor thin. We'll talk to Democrat Danny O'Connor about his continued bid to turn the reliably red district blue. Morning Joe will be right back.
All rise.
for the Premier League, beginning Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern on NBCSN.
I get it all the time. Have you lost weight? Of course I have. Ever since I started renting from National. Because National lets me lose the weight at the counter and choose any car in the aisle. And I don't wait when I return, thanks to Drop and Go. At National, I can lose the weight and keep it off.